Hi everyone. My name is Wen Sen. You can call me Vincent. If that's easier. So I'm from QArcade program. Thanks for having me today. Today I would like to share with you my recent attempts regarding building a hardware platform for the quantum game community. You may find the work by following this GitHub link is still an ongoing work because I recently just joined IBM Quantum as a researcher. And this project is more like a personal interest. So things are getting really slow on my end these days. But in my mind, this project can be helpful and cool actually in terms of promoting quantum education. So I'm still dragging myself to put together everything. So please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well. And I'm open to any questions, all right, even in the middle of my talk, although just 7 minutes. Right? So, all right. So, first of all, I want to quickly talk about what are the games. These days, I think most of us are agreeing that game can be unique educational tools. They can be designed to be realistic. For example, the flight simulator by Microsoft. They can be designed to be engaging. For example, those AAA games like Assassin's Creed, Uncharted, or if you are at similar age like me, Doom, for example, right? And they can also be inspiring and creative. For example, some indie games these days are very popular, like Superhot and Among Us. So as a quantum physics, it becomes, and also I'm like kind of like addicted to video games. So it becomes my personal interest to see how to bring the game to educational aspect of quantum industry and to promote more or like invite more next generation quantum workforce by encoding the quantum education and like those knowledge into video games. So how do we generate more quantum games in this sense to promote this the quantum education? I think the first priority is we need to bring in more creators and players by lowering the threshold when making quantum games. So the current bottlenecks from my experience of developing a quantum game often involves sophisticated setup between quantum simulator modules, Qiskit, in my case, and the main or popular game engine, for example, Unity or Qiskit, right? And we know that Qiskit is in Python, and the integration between these two systems is more like software engineer work, and they usually require very sophisticated setup for. So it's from basically in this category. Quantum game developer these days, however, are mature enthusiasts like me, like you, maybe, who usually has physics or scientific background that has we are usually struggled in terms of like connecting these two platforms. So and one important aspect of being a game designer is also the user interface. The game need to be engaging. It needs to at least maybe not beautiful, but it at least need to be appealing, right? So it can be just like it can be always like text interfaces or like those like composer a quantum composer interface like we see on the IBM quantum interface or other many other interpreters. So there's actually one effort, one particular effort that is interested, led by also a Qiskit advocate. His name is Jan Laman. He's also an IBM CTO for Luxnana in Germany. And they actually, recently they kind of like have this effort that puts the, basically they put the Qiskit into the Raspberry Pi microprocessor and demonstrate a like mini version of a quantum simulator on a classical machine. So my personal like what I try to do in the past few months is try to put using a similar platform. Basically, I'm also use Raspberry Pi, combined with like in this case, 8-inch screen. I recently upgraded to 10-inch, and also like joystick and buttons. So it becomes a arcade machine that you're seeing. That was first thing in 1970s. In the meanwhile, the software interface has recently been reconsidered. I previously used Pico 8 as a software or like game developing engine, and that is supported by, that can also be supported by Raspberry Pi. But these days I am considering something new because of the license, something different because of a license issue that can, Pico 8 can be a bottleneck when we're trying to publish in open source, when we try to open sourcing this thing. So many people, when I was developing this project, many collaborators or even just friends, they would ask me why I want to use arcade machine to realize this platform. Personally, I think there are 3 points that I summarize. First of all, is the classical arcades are originally built with very limited classical hardware. It pretty much is like what we are here today in the NISC devices. And the second is the hardware breakthrough can also be due to the demands in gaming, like for example, 3D graphics. And the most important thing is I like this mixing feeling between the nostalgia and the modern technology. So you have a machine in 1970s, but inside is the Qiskit, like the quantum spirit that is in 2020s. And that's like they are 50 years apart. So I do not have much time left. So I'll just quickly bring you the current status. The platform is now complete, and I am working on developing quantum games, but not just myself. Actually, I was collaborating with, I'm from Taiwan, by the way. So I'm collaborating with local high school students and also high school teachers and even like college students just to develop quantum games on this platform in particular. So just try to see how this platform works and what do they feel, because they are like the more junior quantum enthusiasts in this sense. And if they can do it, I think many of us can do it as well. So thank you for having me today. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you so much. That is an amazing talk and presentation.
All right, I should like minimize my, I cannot see chat in this sense. Maybe I should stop sharing. Right.
If someone has any questions, you can write it in the chat.
Oh, I haven't seen any questions. Okay, anyway.
I had a question.
Sure.
Yeah. We can, well,
a quantum simulation library for Pico 8. Right, so this is a great question, actually. Thank you, Elos. So the idea is the Pico 8, in Pico 8, it's a Lua language. It basically, Pico 8 inherits the Lua language. And in Lua language, we can just import a segment of code that is Qiskit, that directly, we directly extracted from Qiskit for quantum simulation. It's called micro Qiskit. So basically, you just copy paste the code in your Pico 8 programming file, or like, I don't know how to code it correctly, but Pico 8 code. It's also a piece of Pico 8 code that is designed to do the quantum simulation. Right. I can also try to copy that, and you can take more questions in the meanwhile.
My question is, what is the limitation for the from your software in the
software? You mean software or?
Yeah, the software in the Raspberry. What is the limitation? The simulation of a number of qubits is a limitation.
Oh, that is great point. Yes, that is great point. Usually in laptop, as far as I understand, in our current laptop, like a standard laptop I'm using, is mostly for 53 qubits, like for simulations, right? And in this, I haven't really tried the limit, but it's beyond, at least it's beyond 10 qubits that I use in the game when I try to develop some games. Most of the time I just use 3 qubits because I think that's also depends on how you want to realize your game. Like, for example, there's one game I think I quickly show in my slide. If we should present it again. So there's this what did I do? Resume. Okay. So there's this game that was developed. That was kind of inspired by the coupon that developed by Junye Huang, right? And they, in this case, you just use 3 qubits because that's can also they already give you some kind of like 8 position that you can move your pedals when you are playing this ping pong. And I did a similar work here by become a shooting game, but also like you can shoot at most 8 laser beams in this sense. But then also you just need 3 qubits because there's 2 to the 3, right? The degree of freedom. So I think that depends on what you want to do. And one thing I didn't mention, but I should probably emphasize here is quantum games these days are still, we don't really have a quantum advantage at this point. So we cannot really compete with AAA games, like, you know, because using quantum doesn't make your game look more beautiful in this sense. But the creativity and those ideas actually can bring you more fun, and that's why I tend to think quantum game community as an indie game community these days, like independent game developers, and we're not competing with those you know, big company-ish things. As a result, that's why another reason why I think like flexibility and mobility is more important when I'm thinking to cultivating a quantum game community. But that's just personal thoughts, right? It could be discussed.